The candlelight flickers against the cold stone walls, its glow licking the edges of a chamber that smells of iron and lilies. You stand in silence, your silk gown heavy with secrets, your hands trembling as you clutch a ring that is far too familiar. Across the room, a child, your child, stares back at you, dressed not in innocence but in a crown, their young face framed by gold that feels like a shackle. The music outside is jubilant, a celebration of bloodlines kept pure, but here behind closed doors you taste the ash of betrayal. You hear the quiet murmur of priests blessing a union that should never be spoken of. You feel the world closing in, walls tightening, rules bending until they snap. What kind of power demands such a price? And how far will a royal family go to preserve a throne when love and blood become the same? The hall is alive with light, but it is not warmth that fills it. It is expectation. Imagine a palace in the late 1700s, its marble floors polished so perfectly that the gold of the chandeliers seems to swim across the surface. The air smells of beeswax and incense. But underneath is something sharper. The cold tang of steel hidden in every decision, every glance. This is not merely a royal court, it is a fortress for blood. You watch as noblemen and courtiers move like pieces on a board, their silks whispering secrets as they pass, each step measured, each smile calculated. At the center sits a queen whose face is both radiant and tired, her crown heavy not with jewels, but with the weight of legacy. Around her, portraits of ancestors stare down like silent judges, their painted eyes reminding every guest why they are here. The bloodline must endure. Tonight is not about love. It is about survival dressed as celebration. Musicians play softly, their bows gliding over strings like whispers in the dark, and the courtiers toast to futures no one can truly control. The young heirs sit stiffly, their collars too tight, their eyes too wide. They do not know yet that their lives are already spoken for, that every meal they eat, every hand they shake, is leading to a union not chosen but dictated. And behind all this splendor, there are locked rooms where old men speak of lineage like a currency, and young girls are weighed not for their smiles, but for the purity of their veins. This is the opening act, the beautiful mask before the reveal. The court is not merely a place of music and silk. It is a place where the walls themselves hum with the pressure of continuity, where the smallest drop of blood could mean the difference between empire and oblivion. The deeper you step into the palace, the more the music fades, replaced by the quiet pulse of something heavier: duty, secrecy, fear. Behind the grand ballroom, beyond the tapestries that celebrate victories long dead, there are corridors where conversations change tone, where voices drop and glances sharpen. It is here that the true machinery of the bloodline turns. Fathers speak to daughters as if they are documents to be signed, not souls to be nurtured. Brothers and cousins are measured not by their laughter or loyalty, but by the patterns in their veins. The language is coded, yet clear. Keep the throne safe, keep the blood pure. The servants know it, though they do not speak. They carry trays and polish mirrors, but their ears catch fragments of names whispered like confessions. And the children, still too young to understand, begin to feel the chill. A boy of 12 may hear a joke at dinner about a future match, his cheeks burning without knowing why. A girl of 14 may be praised not for her mind, but for the shape of her jaw, the paleness of her skin, the echo of her mother's lineage. These hints are threads that tighten as the years pass, threads that twist around throats until choice becomes an illusion. And all the while, the world outside, the common world, believes in fairy tales of royal weddings and golden promises. They see the gowns and the crowns, never the locked doors. They do not hear the quiet prayers muttered by mothers who dread the day their child is told whom to love, or worse, who to become. Here, in this hushed underworld of silks and shadows, the rules are older than any crown, and the price of breaking them is too steep to imagine. The night deepens, and the palace glows like a living jewel, but the brilliance only makes the shadows sharper. Beyond the laughter and the music, there is a single truth whispered in every gilded corridor. Blood is the throne's only armor. You see it in the way the queen watches her children, not with softness, but with calculation. She knows each smile, each gesture could be weighed against a future alliance, a possible betrayal, or a strengthening of the crown. And so, even moments of tenderness are laced with strategy. The older children begin to sense it first. A princess, barely 16, feels the weight of stares when she enters a room. Her value is no longer in her laughter, but in the symmetry of her face, the purity of her name. A young prince, little more than a boy, learns that trust is fragile when every handshake could be a promise or a trap. These heirs, dressed in velvet and pearls, are already ghosts of themselves, molded to be symbols rather than people. Even love, the rarest, purest thing, is shaped to fit the throne's demands. Cousins are no longer cousins. They are potential contracts. Siblings may become whispers of something forbidden, all in service of a lineage too sacred to dilute. And yet, outside the palace gates, the world believes in fairy tales. They believe the gowns are worn for joy, that weddings are born of love. They cannot smell the iron hidden under the roses, cannot hear the tears swallowed at midnight when a child realizes their destiny is not their own. Here, the palace is a theatre, and the bloodline is both script and shackle. The audience never sees the cost, they only applaud the spectacle. Dawn breaks cold and silver over the palace, but inside the day begins like a drill, not a dream. For royal children, morning does not bring softness, it brings ritual. You can almost hear the echo of footsteps in long corridors as tutors arrive, their arms filled with scrolls and stern lessons. These halls do not tolerate play. They shape heirs like weapons. A young prince, barely 10, sits stiffly in a high-backed chair while Latin phrases are drilled into his memory, not for curiosity, but for diplomacy. A princess, her hair braided so tightly it aches, learns to glide across marble floors without sound, to speak with restraint, to smile with purpose. They are told that every gesture must echo the dignity of a crown, that even their silences will be judged. And yet there is an ache in their eyes that no tutor can erase. The ache of being watched, weighed, measured. Servants move quietly around them, carrying trays of food they cannot eat freely, listening to secrets they cannot repeat. Outside, other children chase sunlight, but here, laughter feels like rebellion. Their rooms smell of ink and wax, not toys or flowers. The walls are lined with portraits of stern ancestors, each painted face a silent reminder of what is expected. Even meals are lessons. Sit straight, chew quietly, speak when spoken to, and when the lessons end, another begins. History, theology, sword drills for boys, needlework, and manners for girls. Childhood in this world is not a time of wonder, but of preparation, a waiting room for roles they did not choose. Even then, the quiet message seeps into their bones. You are not your own. You belong to the blood, and the blood belongs to the throne. As the years pass, the lessons grow sharper, and the children begin to understand what their titles truly mean. The palace, once just a labyrinth of marble and gold, now feels like a cage disguised as paradise. The young prince, now entering adolescence, notices the quiet pressure in every handshake, the weight behind every compliment. At banquets, older courtiers study him the way merchants study goods, assessing posture, features, potential. The princess, still a child in so many ways, is already praised for her resemblance to a grandmother whose marriage saved an empire. She begins to sense that her face, her body, her very existence is a currency. Tutors soften their tone when speaking of destiny, but make no mistake, each word is a reminder that love and choice are luxuries not meant for those of royal blood. Even their friendships are monitored, trimmed like hedges, to maintain shape and propriety. A boy too close to a cousin might find himself separated without explanation. A girl who laughs too freely at a young knight's joke might feel the sting of rebuke. Innocent moments are framed as dangerous, the simplest gestures carrying implications of scandal. And the children begin to shrink under that gaze, learning to hold secrets, even from themselves. They learn to smile while calculating, to trust, no one fully, not even each other. The palace teaches them that blood is both bond and weapon. It can crown you or destroy you. And somewhere, beneath the silks and rituals, they start to understand the unspoken truth. One day, they may be asked to marry not for love, not for alliance with another land, but for the throne itself, for blood so pure it cannot leave the family. They do not yet know how far that demand will reach, but the shadow of it already chills them. The shift from childhood to duty is not marked by celebration. It happens quietly, like a candle burning out. By their mid-teens, the heirs move through the palace as if it owns them, not the other way around. The boy, now tall and sure-footed, wears a sword at his side, but feels no freedom in the weight of it. The girl, her face soft but her posture rigid, is draped in silks that feel like chains. Every glance they exchange with their parents is layered with expectation. Every conversation with courtiers is a test. Their lessons are no longer just words and books, but strategy and restraint. How to hide fear, how to appear unshaken even when the world tilts. And then the first hints arrive, like shadows creeping across a floor. A suggestion from an advisor, a comment over dinner, an old portrait pointed out with meaning. The boy sees his cousin's name mentioned with his, and though they laugh, the laughter feels thin. The girl hears whispers about her line and her value, and begins to notice the way older women in the court avert their eyes, as if pitying or warning. These moments are small, but they seed something heavy, a growing awareness that the throne does not wait for love. It arranges, it commands. They start to carry this knowledge like a secret they cannot share. They practice smiles in mirrors, knowing soon they will need them to hide discomfort, even disgust. Childhood is over before it has even begun, and what replaces it is a strange, lonely maturity. They are royalty, and that means sacrifice. And deep within those golden halls where every footstep echoes like a promise, the truth becomes undeniable. The bloodline is a demand, and it will take everything. Night falls, and the palace transforms. The grand halls are hushed, the laughter of the court replaced by something softer, heavier, a silence thick enough to feel. Candles line the walls like watchful eyes, their smoke curling in the air as if reluctant to leave. This is not the music of festivals or the clatter of war councils. This is the sound of secrecy. Somewhere behind carved oak doors, a small group gathers, and though no bells toll, though no trumpets sound, something binding is about to happen. The air smells of beeswax and incense, but underneath is the faint sting of fear, a metallic taste carried on every breath. Here, in these closed rooms, ceremonies unfold that no painter will capture, no historian will dare to describe. A young princess, barely a woman, stands in white, her face pale not from beauty, but from resignation. Before her is not a stranger, but someone she has always known, someone whose face has been a part of her daily life, someone whose blood is her own. The priests speak softly, their words dressed in scripture, sanctifying what the law of the world would condemn. A ring is slid onto a trembling hand, a vow whispered too low to echo, and the weight of a dynasty settles like a stone. There is no applause, no celebration, only the quiet shift of power, the cold logic of lineage, and the sound of two lives, being bound by something older and harder than love. In this room, choice does not exist. Only duty remains, dressed in silks and shadows, waiting to be carried out. The walls do not speak, but they remember. Behind the carved doors, the ceremony moves like a quiet storm, each gesture deliberate, each moment thick with unspoken weight. The princess's hands are folded tightly, but not in devotion, in control. in effort to keep them from trembling. Her groom, scarcely older, avoids her gaze, his face an unreadable mask carved from expectation. Their voices, when they finally rise, are no louder than a prayer. They repeat the words laid before them, ancient vows wrapped in the language of faith and law, but their eyes are distant, watching something no one else can see, a childhood disappearing, a freedom closing. The priests bless them, their voices calm, almost tender, as if tenderness could make this right. Outside the chamber, courtiers wait, knowing, but never admitting. The smell of roasted meats and wine drifts faintly from the feast that will mask the truth. For those gathered, this is not scandal, it is strategy. A kingdom's future is being secured, its bloodline tightened like a knot. The girl's veil shimmers under the candlelight, a ghostly thing that hides more than it reveals. She is praised, for obedience, for grace, for silence, and silence becomes its own kind of armor. Because here, love is not the language spoken. Here, blood speaks louder than desire. The crown has no patience for the chaos of choice. It seeks only control. And as the vows end, as rings are exchanged, it is clear this is not an ending, but the beginning of a life where the heart will always be second to the throne. When the doors finally open, the sound is muffled, as though the air itself knows to stay quiet. There is no cheering, no jubilant procession, just the soft glide of footsteps on stone as the couple emerges. Two figures bound by duty, not by desire. The feast begins, but it is a masquerade. Goblets are raised, music swells, and yet beneath it all is a strange tension, a heaviness that clings to the tapestries. The princess smiles when required, but her eyes are distant, reflecting something fragile and unfinished. Her groom sits beside her, stiff and polite, his hand resting near hers, but never daring to hold it. Around them, the court buzzes with polite conversation, carefully avoiding the subject they all know too well. Behind every laugh is a question that will never be asked aloud. How far will a dynasty go to protect its name? In quiet corners, servants exchange glances. Some pity, some fear. They see what others pretend not to see. The trembling at the edge of a wineglass, the tightness of a jaw, the way youth is crushed under gold. And yet, by morning, this night will be written not as tragedy, but as triumph. The records will speak of alliances, of tradition upheld, of heirs to come. They will not mention the cost, the quiet heartbreak, the silent prayers, the lives bent to fit the shape of a crown. For in this world, silence is survival. And so the ceremony fades, leaving behind not joy, not love, but an unspoken pact between blood and power, a pact sealed by two trembling hands and the weight of generations watching. Morning light spills into the palace like a slow confession, washing over corridors that seem unchanged, yet somehow heavier. The ceremony is over, but its echo lingers in every gesture, every guarded smile. For the young couple, there is no honeymoon, no gentle unfolding of love, only the quiet realization that they now carry the weight of a dynasty. Their days are mapped like military campaigns, audiences with priests, lessons in governance, the constant scrutiny of watchful eyes. Letters arrive daily, sealed with the crests of those who will never know the cost of what they demand. At night, the corridors are darker, and the silence feels colder. The girl sits at a dressing table, the mirror showing a face that looks older than her years, her jewelry gleaming like chains. The boy, restless, walks the gardens alone, the scent of roses turning bitter in the cool air. They speak little, not out of dislike, but because words are dangerous now. Everything they say could be remembered, judged, twisted. And beyond their private unease, the court moves like an unfeeling machine, discussing heirs as if they were crops to be planted. The queen watches them closely, as does every advisor, because a single failure, a stillborn child, A broken marriage could ripple through the kingdom like a crack in glass. Outside the palace walls, the world spins on, oblivious to the sacrifices made in marble chambers. People will tell stories of royal romance and noble duty, but those stories will never capture the truth, that the crown demands a kind of loyalty that erases the self. And here, in these quiet mornings, the heirs begin to feel it. Their lives are not their own, and the throne will haunt them until the end. As weeks turn to months, the marriage becomes less a union and more a quiet performance. The couple moves through the palace like shadows, speaking when they must, smiling when expected, each gesture polished but hollow. The advisors keep score of everything: the tilt of a head, the faintest rumor of discord, the absence or presence of an heir. And soon, the whispers begin. Why is there no child yet? Why is the future uncertain? The young bride feels the questions like thorns pressed against her skin. She is still so young, still trying to understand the shape of her life, and already she is treated as a vessel rather than a person. The groom, though bound by the same expectations, finds himself restless, pacing long corridors at night, staring at portraits of kings who lived and died by rules they did not write. Outside the palace walls, songs are sung of noble love, of duty fulfilled, but inside, the truth is colder. The weight of silence thickens. It sits at the dinner table, lingers. In the council chamber, hovers even in the bedroom. The bride studies the older women at court, faces lined not just by age but by years of quiet endurance, and wonders if this is all there is. Letters from relatives arrive, urging patience, urging obedience, praising loyalty to the crown. And, yet beneath it all, there is a pulse of something unspoken: fear. The fear that the bloodline may falter, that the empire's dream of purity may fray. For in this world, love is not a shelter. It is a risk, a distraction, sometimes even a threat. And so they learn to live with silence, to hold their breath when asked about the future, to become perfect actors in a play written long before they were born. Time moves strangely in a palace. The seasons change outside the gates, but inside, the weight of tradition makes every day feel the same, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. The couple grows older, but not freer. Their lives are measured in formal dinners, hushed conversations, and the constant pressure to produce an heir. The bride, once delicate and hopeful, now wears composure like armor. Her smiles are practiced, her silence polished. The groom, hardened by expectation, carries himself like a statue, steady but cold. And around them, the court watches, always watching, as if their very breath belongs to the crown. When an heir finally arrives, if it does, the celebration will not be for the parents, but for the bloodline. The child will be swaddled not just in silk, but in the burden of centuries, a life claimed before it can even cry. And if the child does not come, if fate twists cruelly, the whispers will grow sharp and merciless. Blame will settle like dust, on her shoulders, on his silence, on the unseen machinery of lineage that devours youth without regret. In private moments, they sometimes look at each other and see the faint memory of children who once dreamed, before they were pressed into service of something older than themselves. Yet even these memories fade, replaced by rituals and appearances, by the endless cycle of power sustaining itself. Beyond the palace gates, poets will write of crowns and devotion, of noble blood that binds and redeems. But none of those verses will tell the truth. For here, at the core of the kingdom, love is not the anchor, it is the ghost, and the throne is its shadow. When the curtain finally falls on a royal life, the world sees only the funeral, the wreaths, the marble carved with perfect titles, but the truth is rarely engraved. Behind every sealed coffin lies a story of sacrifice disguised as privilege. The woman who once carried the hopes of a dynasty becomes a portrait on a wall, her youth forgotten, her voice erased by the echo of the crown. The man who stood beside her, whether king, consort, or silent observer, will eventually follow, and their union will be remembered not for love, but for lineage. In the quiet corridors of history, no one asks if they were happy. The record books care only for heirs and treaties. Yet it is in those small, unseen moments, the tired glance, the unsent letter, the longing for something simple, that the weight of royalty truly shows. This is why their stories matter. Because behind every grand title is a human heart that beat against its cage. As we leave this chapter, remember that the grandeur of palaces is built on private silences. The next time you see a portrait in a museum, look closer. Not at the jewels or the robes, but at the eyes. They tell the truth better than the history books ever will. And now, if these hidden lives intrigue you, stay with us. There are more forgotten rooms to open, more secrets to uncover. Every story we tell here pulls back the velvet curtain on the lives history tried to polish clean. Subscribe to this channel, share this journey with those who crave the untold, and join us as we walk the shadowed halls of the past. For there are queens who ruled in silence, kings who wore crowns of regret, and servants whose whispers outlived their masters, and each deserves to be heard.